Hello learners, on behalf of Indira Gandhi National Open University, we welcome you for this video lecture session. Today's topic is significance of energy. This is 32nd module of the course Thermodynamics and its application. I am Shubhashish Maji, professor in School of Engineering and Technology from Indira Gandhi National Open University. So, dear learners, let us begin our discussion on the topic significance of energy. After listening to this video lecture, you will be able to understand the significance of energy for national economic development. You will be able to delineate the principal energy uses in different sectors. You will be able to classify the different types of industrial energy use. You will be able to describe the major strategies for energy management. You will be able to appreciate the role of energy conservation strategies. You will be able to discuss the common barriers to energy conservation. You will be able to understand the significance and limitations of concept of efficiency, and you will be able to know the role of energy audit. So, let us begin our discussion. Energy has been universally recognized as one of the most important inputs for economic growth and human development. There is a strong two-way relationship between economic development and energy consumption. Energy is an essential building block of economic development. In an effort to meet the demands of a developing nation, the Indian energy sector has witnessed a rapid growth. Areas like the resource exploration and exploitation, capacity additions, and energy sector reforms have been revolutionized. The indicator of energy, GDP elasticity, that is the ratio of growth rate of energy to the growth rate of GDP, captures both the structure of economy as well as the efficiency. In the recent years, India's energy consumption has been increasing at one of the fastest rates in the world due to population growth and economic development. Energy is the basic natural resource for national economic development. The role of energy as a factor of production or service in all sectors of the economy like industry, transportation, commerce, domestic and agriculture has been assuming increasing significance as the availability and reliability of supply and quality of energy resources have been deteriorating. Till about a couple of decades ago, the nations of the world were basking in the promises held out by continuously accelerating growth of their economics, utilizing the natural resources bestowed by nature and employing evolving technologies of ever-increasing versatility. It appeared that man was on the verge of acquiring control over nature. The technology management and economics of energy conversion and use must be high on the agents of all organizations hoping to remain competitive and profitable. The strategies for achieving effective energy conservation are based on thermodynamics and thermoeconomic consideration. It is necessary for energy engineers and technologists to come to grip with the thermodynamics of energy conversion process, and introduction to which has been provided in our earlier discussion, and the economic evaluation of the different technological options. This video lecture highlights several facets of energy management contributing to more efficient and rational utilization of all energy forms. The significance of energy for national economic development. There exists in general for most countries a direct correlation between the degree of industrialization, gross national product, or standard of living and energy resource consumption. Colder countries understandably have a relatively higher use of energy because more resources are devoted towards heating. Energy producers have a high energy use partly because energy tends to be much cheaper. The country with the highest energy use per capita is Iceland. A significant part of Iceland's energy use is thermal energy from naturally occurring volcanic springs. Thus, this energy is cheap and does not involve burning fossil fuel. Nevertheless, the huge disparity in energy use primarily reflects different income levels throughout the world. All of the countries in the world, including the richest and largest oil producers, Iceland consumes the most energy per person. In 2017, US total primary energy consumption was about 98 quadrillion British thermal unit, which was about to 17% of total world primary energy consumptions of about 582 quadrillion BTU. Top 4 countries in primary energy consumption in 2009: China 141.7 in exajoules, US 116.58 exajoules. India is in the third position. Energy consumption was 34.08 exajoules, and fourth position is Russian Federation 29.81 exajoules. This statistic is to be viewed in the context of the wide disparity in energy access among the population and the almost 50% share of non-commercial energy, particularly among the main populations. Man's dependence on energy stems from his need to produce materials for his use, which are not found in nature through manufacturing processes, and to employ energy forms stored in nature to do useful work for him through energy conversion processes. Man's use of energy has been increasing steadily and rapidly since the time of the Industrial Revolution, and currently it has assumed exponential rate of growth. Energy can be converted into various forms. Technology has advanced to the extent that there is nearly no resources that cannot be harnessed, recycled, or suitably substituted for. Given sufficient energy and the means of safely dissipating the resultant thermal, chemical, and nuclear pollution. In terms of resource utilization since the dawn of civilization. The progression has been from man himself to animals to water and wind to the fossil fuels, that is coal, oil and natural gas, and to nuclear energy. It is only in the recent past 20 years that the finite nature of the non-renewable energy resources and the inevitable pollution resulting from energy utilizations have begun to attract serious consideration by government, industry and the public. Energy represents a multidimensional and dynamic problem of such complexity which requires an integrated systems approach with inputs from several disciplines. The utility electricity sector in India has one national grid with an installed capacity of 371.977 gigawatt as of 31st July 2020. Renewable power plants constitute 35.94% of total installed capacity during the fiscal year 2018-19. The gross electricity generated in utilities in India was 1372 terawatt hour and the total electricity generation, utilities and non-utilities in the country was 1547 terawatt hour. Dear learners, we are using some units which you may not be familiar with. So just I would like to mention that 1 kilowatt is equal to 10 to the power 3 watt. 1 megawatt is equal to 10 to the power 6 watt. 1 gigawatt is equal to 10 to the power 9 watt, and 1 terawatt is equivalent to 10 to the power 12 watt. The gross electricity consumption was 1181 kilowatt hour per capita in the year 2018-19. India is the world's third largest producer and third largest consumer of electricity. In the fiscal year 2015-16, electric energy consumption in agriculture was the highest, that is 17.89% worldwide. Per capita electricity consumption is low compared to many countries despite cheaper electricity tariff in India. India's electricity sector is dominated by fossil fuel, particularly by coal, which produced about 3/4 of the country's electricity in 2018-19. The government is making efforts to increase investment in renewable energy. The government's National Electricity Plan of 2018 states that country does not need additional non-renewable power plants in the utility sector until 2027, with the commissioning of 50,025 megawatt coal-based power plants under construction and addition of 2,75,000 megawatt total installed renewable power capacity after the retirement of nearly 48,000 megawatt old coal-fired power plant. Now let us discuss about the roadmap for renewable power by 2022. Total power generation by renewable sources of energy estimated till 2022 is 175 gigawatt. Out of that, solar energy is 100 gigawatt, wind energy is 60 gigawatt, small hydro is 5 gigawatt, and others from different renewable sources like tidal energy and geothermal energy and so on is 60 gigawatt. The installed capacity of sources in India as of 31st March 2020 is as coal 2,05,134 coal 2,05,134.5 megawatt, that comes out to be 55.4% of total power generation capacity. Large hydro 45,699.22 megawatt, small hydro 4,683.16 megawatt, wind power 37,693.75 megawatt, solar power 34,627.82 megawatt, biomass 10,022.95 megawatt, nuclear power plant 6,780 megawatt, gas 24,955.36 megawatt, and diesel 509.71 megawatt. Energy used in different sectors. The following sectors use most of the energy in different forms in most countries: agriculture, commerce, domestic industry, and transportation. The industrial sector accounts for approximately 50% of the total energy use, mainly in these forms: electricity, fuel, process steam. Now let us discuss about classification of industrial energy use. Standard industrial classification: primary metal industries, chemicals and allied products, petroleum refining and related industries, food and kindred products, paper and allied products, stone, clay, glass and concrete products. Major energy intensive industries are aluminum, ammonia, cement industries, iron and steel industries, paper industries, petroleum and refining, and sugar industries. The two oil crises in 1973 and 1979 were chiefly responsible for bringing energy management into the center stage. As a result of this crisis, the cost of energy, particularly relating to fossil fuel, increased substantially, and strategies for decreasing the energy intensity of industrial operations without affecting the output have been developed. Since early design of machines and operations were not energy efficient, there is a lot of scope for energy saving in all the sectors. In terms of the investment required, the major strategies for energy management may be classified under three heads: low cost or no cost strategies. These include good housekeeping measures, plugging leaks, avoiding wastage, and fine tuning equipment, etc. Moderate cost strategies. These involve minor expenditures like modifying designs or operation, replacement of worn out insulation or equipment, etc. High cost strategies. These incorporates major expense to achieve large energy and money savings, such as introduction of waste heat recovery devices like heat exchangers, process parameters change, replacement of obsolete equipment by modern ones, etc. There are two main approaches to energy management at the national level. Either the supply of energy has to be increased or the demand for energy has to be decreased. These approaches are not independent of each other. The demand for energy can be decreased by discouraging demand through enhancement of prices, the belt tightening approach. By reducing energy consumption through improved efficiency of energy utilization and through reduction of energy wastes, the leak plugging approach. Let us talk about the role of energy conservation strategies. The response to the two oil crises, particularly in the developed countries, has clearly shown that energy resource conservation is one of the most effective strategies for managing our energy problems. The following factors serve to highlight the role of energy conservation as an important energy resource, one that, in addition, poses no pollution problems. The realization of the severely finite nature of the terrestrial fossil fuel resources, the need to preserve the environment, the concern regarding the long-term radiation hazards associated with nuclear energy, the uncertain future relating to alternative renewable energy technologies. Both energy and environmental considerations point to the desirability of employing energy conservation as a strategy for tackling these twin problems. The effectiveness of implementing and administering a successful energy conservation problems depend on the institutional resources available in the country. However, these institutions in turn encounter problems such as lack of clear articulated objectives, lack of coordination among government agencies, conflicting and contradictory responsibilities, and lack of managerial and technical expertise. Waste of all types must be minimized. It is particularly important for materials with high intrinsic energy content such as metals, glass, plastics, paper, refractory, etc. Strategies for improving the design of systems to improve durability and lifespan also contribute to energy conservation. Unintentional and undetected recycling during manufacture results in energy wastage, especially in the case of materials which can be easily reprocessed. Even though industry benefits greatly by conserving energy, by recommended conservation procedures are often not implemented due to certain practical drawbacks such as cash flow problems, payback period longer than 2 years, resistance to change from management and labor, lack of commitment from the top management, and the cost of energy being a small fraction of total cost. The fact of the matter is that while the former involves work to heat conversion, the latter involves the sequential conversion of chemical energy of fuel to sensible enthalpy of steam to mechanical work and ultimately to electrical work. The second law permits 100% conversion of work to heat but limits the efficiency of conversion of heat to work to a value which is less than 100%. The actual value is dependent primarily on the heat source and sink temperature. Efficiency implies a maximum value of 100%, causing us to invent new names if it appears to exceed 100%. Such a viewpoint is based on its interpretation as the ratio of what we want to what we have to pay for. For example, the parameters for assessing the performance of electric refrigerator and heat pumps are designated as coefficient of performance since they can and usually have values greater than 1. Although it is intuitively clear, there are two explicit reasons for seeking high efficiency in power plant practice. The Higher the efficiency, the smaller is the quantity of fuel required to accomplish a given task, thus resulting in lower cost for fuel, slower fuel resources depletion, and less environmental damage in the extraction and combustion of the fuel. As the efficiency is always less than 100% from the first law, whatever energy is not tapped for work must be rejected to the environment and disposed of in some way. Typically, about two-thirds of the energy in the fuel will be rejected partly to the atmosphere through the stack and partly to the cooling water. Thus, higher the efficiency, smaller is the waste energy. The thermal pollution from nuclear power plant is greater than that from fossil fuel fired power plants. For these reasons, the efficiency of the nuclear power plant is less than that of its fossil fuel counterpart, because the practical upper temperature limit of the former is less, as it is limited by the materials which must be used to contain the fissionable substance. For example, for an identical power output of 500 megawatt, assuming an efficiency of 40% for the fossil fuel plant and 30% for the nuclear plant, a reduction of 25%, it can be shown that the heat rejection in the latter case is higher by 56%. Several practical energy systems involve thermodynamic cycles. The concept of efficiency for cycle is commonly based solely on the first law, representing the fractional part of the heat supplied to a cycle which is converted into work, and may be verbally stated in the following alternative ways: what we get divided by what we have to pay for, useful output by input, useful effect by energy that must be purchased, quantitative value of desired result divided by quantitative value of inputs used to produce that result. Now let us talk about efficiency for non-cyclic processes. The compression efficiency is applied to pump or compression and defined as efficiency is equal to isentropic work by actual work. The expansion or engine efficiency is applied to a work producing process, that is, efficiency is equal to actual work divided by isentropic work. It is noted that the efficiency employed in the above discussion is based just on the first law of thermodynamics. No second law implications are considered. In general, the first law efficiency may be described as the ratio of energy transfer of the desired kind achieved by the device to the energy input to the device as defined above. The first law efficiency has the following shortcomings. Its maximum value may be greater than, equal to, or less than 1 depending on the device and on temperature. It cannot be readily generalized to complex systems in which the desired output is a combination of work and heat, as in cogeneration system. This is because to the cycle of the first law, work and heat are equivalent both quantitatively and qualitatively. Now let us discuss about the nature and scope of energy audit. Energy audit involves 3 steps. measurement of energy use and cost, and reporting it as energy and money accounts. Second one, presentation of accounts to compare actual energy use and cost with predicted or standard amounts. The last one is interpretation of accounts to identify areas which need remedial measures to reduce energy usage and cost. It is pertinent to quote one of the principal conclusion of the 1989 World Energy Conference in Montreal. Fossil fuels will continue to meet most of the world's growing energy demand. We should therefore be committed to using them more rationally. This requires a thorough understanding of combustion phenomenon, meticulous design of combustion device, and fine-tuned operation of the combustion equipment. One of the greatest opportunities for industrial fuel conservation is provided by improved combustion efficiency of the fuel burning equipment in energy systems such as boilers, process heater, kilns, dryers, incinerators, steam generator, etc. And the most important factor in optimizing combustion is to ensure that the proper mixture of fuel and air is supplied to the combustion process. Indian power sector is undergoing a significant change that has redefined the industry outlook. Sustained economic growth continues to drive electricity demand in India. The Government of India's focus on attaining power to all has accelerated capacity addition in the country. At the same time, the competitive intensity is increasing at both the market and supply sides. Wind energy is estimated to contribute 60 gigawatt, followed by solar energy at 100 gigawatt by 2022 and 15 gigawatt from biomass and hydropower. The target for renewable energy has been increased to 175 gigawatt by 2022. Total installed capacity power station in India stood at 371.977 gigawatt as of 31st July 2020. Coal-based power generation capacity in India, which currently stands at 205.13 gigawatt as of March 2020, is expected to reach 330 to 441 gigawatt by 2040. So we have discussed about our lecture sessions on significance of power. Now let us very quickly summarize what we have discussed quickly. We have discussed significance of energy. Now let us summarize our discussion. We have discussed the significance of energy for national economic development. We have discussed the principal energy uses in different sectors, the different types of industrial energy use, the role of energy conservation strategies. We have discussed the common barriers to energy conservations, and we have also discussed the significance and limitations of the concept of efficiency and the role of energy audit in the conservation of energy. Thank you very much.